And with that, we're moving on to our next presenter on today's Data Protection EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce Carla Federigo. She's the Director of Product Marketing at Infrascale. Carla, are you there?
I am. Yep. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you everyone for your time. We've definitely heard from a lot of great solutions so far. I know we still have more to come. My goal here in the next 20 minutes or so is to really clarify our specific approach to data protection here at Infrascale, and I want to address the aspects of our solution that are really unique to us as a solution. So I also want to note that before we sort of dive into the details here, our message is spreading really quickly. If we take a look at this Gartner Magic Quadrant, we were named a leader in DRAAS, Disaster Recovery as a Service, in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. And we've been gaining momentum with the experts as well. So it wasn't just 2017 that we had recognition. In 2016, we were named a visionary. In 2015, we were named a cool vendor. So we're really gaining that momentum. And I just share this first and foremost before we dive into the details so that everyone on the line here today sees that, you know, everything that I'm going to share with you has been verified and vetted by the experts. So you don't have to take my word for it. They've already looked at all the details. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive in. So I want to take a look first at some of those threats to business continuity that we want to address. And, you know, these are the data protection issues that any business will come up against. And these are threats to business continuity that Infrascale specifically addresses. So we look at the loss of data when it comes to files and folders, data hijacking like ransomware, or business downtime and system downtime when you know, systems and servers go down, and those, you know, hurricanes and floods like we're experiencing now. These threats can come in many different forms, and so threats to business continuity can take a lot of different shapes and sizes. So let me get these all on the screen here. If we look at really the variety of use cases, these are sort of all I wish I had DRAAS moments. And so we can recover from ransomware attacks, those natural disasters, even human error. We know that human error is a large cause of data loss. We love to be really responsible computer users, but we are human and humans make mistakes, unfortunately. We have those power outages, brownouts, or even just spilled coffee when it comes to micro disasters. It could be anything from OS upgrades or software upgrades to lift and shift when you need to migrate entire workloads to the cloud. It could come into play with compliance mandates, regulatory frameworks, or lost and stolen laptops. So lots of different use cases that we can address, and regardless of the cause, to this day, we still have lots of companies that lose data. So we want to look at, you know, how we're actually going to resolve that. So just to be sure we're all on the same page, DRAAS, meaning Disaster Recovery as a Service, is going to replicate and protect your entire environment. So not just the files and folders, but it lets you quickly recover your systems by just failing over either to an on-premise appliance or to the cloud, and ensure uptime, ensure availability that way when something goes wrong. So like we are hearing today, there are many different ways to define data protection, and there are many different ways to define a DRAAS solution. So we know there are various ways to back up and recover critical systems and data. We know that organizations have different security requirements, different compliance mandates, and there are lots of different levels and flexibility in backup targets and recovery options, and then also failback procedures. So this is some of what I'd like to cover today. We're going to talk specifically about how Infrascale DRAAS works, and then also what are the important items to take into consideration when selecting a provider. So let's take a look at sort of backup versus DRAAS. Now, on the top of your screen here, you see how generally a backup solution is going to work. When you're dealing with any type of disaster or outage, we know time is going to be your worst enemy. So simple backup procedures, like you see along the top, are going to take significantly longer than a modern DRAAS solution. So with cloud backup, you have maybe 4 to 5 hours as your best case scenario for recovery. And part of that reason is that when it comes to restoring applications and production databases from that backup, it requires a lot of planning and coordination. Take a look at all the steps involved here. So if you have a backup system, you need to find a clean point from which to restore, get that hardware to recover, set up the machine, recover the data, test it for viability, and if it's not viable, you really need to start over again before you actually restore to production. But along the bottom, let's take a look at that DRAAS solution where the total downtime is 1 to 2 minutes. So you can simultaneously cloud boot multiple versions of the same machine and determine a safe version to recover. And then you can boot either to the cloud, a virtual environment, or recover to production hardware. So that's why that total downtime is about 1 to 2 minutes in that case, saving a ton of time and money because of the simplicity of all these steps. And the Infrascale DRAAS solution specifically includes built-in failover orchestration. So that lets you create predetermined failover plans. They can be scheduled to boot simultaneously or in a specific order with wait times in between. And we're going to take a look at that in just a minute here. But rather than just talk through how the DRAAS solution works, I want to give you a specific example. So here's an example where the end users are simply working like normal in this situation, working on their production systems. And we're going to install the Infrascale disaster recovery solution. So it's a hybrid cloud solution. There's an on-premise failover appliance installed locally, and that might be a virtual appliance or might be a physical appliance. And then we have the cloud-based service like would run on any public or private cloud. So we capture the systems to the appliance, we dedupe them to compress the amount of data that's stored, and then we replicate those systems up to the cloud. So we have 2 copies of those systems. We have one locally on the appliance and then one centrally located on the cloud. So in this first scenario, if one system were to go down, the administrator could fail over to the local appliance and then bring back that most recent point or replica of that system and really just spin that up, and the users can continue working with that application or with that server. Now that's the easiest scenario, right? But let's now assume that there's a site-wide infection, one of those hurricanes or floods. So the local appliance is no longer available, and that's okay. We still use those exact same steps. So here we're going to bring up a full virtual environment that replicates exactly what was on premise. We're going to fail over to the cloud. And users are going to continue working, interacting with those cloud-based systems. So this is what Infrascale offers. It's a cloud-based DRAAS solution. All of the backups are replicated off-site to allow for a much faster recovery, be it cloud-based or on-premise, of entire machines. And that way, your users can continue working while that production environment is repaired. And we do this with essentially offering 2 services, Infrascale Cloud Backup and Infrascale Disaster Recovery. So if we take a look at the left first with Cloud Backup, it's a direct-to-cloud solution. And this is oriented really around data and bare metal image backup. So it's typically for endpoint data protection, laptops, mobile devices, and it's really optimized for small to medium businesses and their servers, and then remote or branch offices and mid-market companies. We take a look at the right, this is Infrascale Disaster Recovery. It's that hybrid cloud solution that we just saw, which includes that on-premise component as well as the cloud. So of course, you can back up data, but here we go a step further in capturing those full system images and allowing you to boot and run those images on a local appliance or in the cloud, depending on what you need. Now, we've already done all the work behind the scenes in order to prepare those images, ensure that they're able to run in the cloud, even though they were originally installed and running on a local physical server. So here's a look at the process overall, just a high level here. Along the bottom, we see Infrascale Cloud Backup and Infrascale Disaster Recovery. So again, working from that bottom up, now we're going to look at that next layer up to see the source system that we're trying to protect, whether Windows or Linux or Unix systems, VMware, Hyper-V, or KVM. In either case here, you have an agent that's installed, be it a software agent on the machine, or in the case of virtual environments with VMware, it would be a direct connection to their API. And in the case of Hyper-V, it would be a host level or hypervisor level agent. Now, then we're going to capture those systems. In the case of cloud backup, we'll dedupe the data and directly send it to the cloud of your choosing. In the case of DR, we're going to capture the systems to that on-prem appliance, dedupe there, and then replicate that data to the cloud so you have 2 copies. So everything here is going to be administered through our central web-based dashboard. And you can log into that dashboard from any browser, even a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. And so this is, of course, essential because we know that when a disaster strikes, it's going to be 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and you want to be able to wake up and just, that admin, I should say, is going to just, can grab their tablet or even a smartphone off the bedstand and with a couple of clicks, have that failover procedure kick in. So I'm also going to take a look and show you guys the orchestration policies and procedures. So I mentioned this quickly just a moment ago, but we want to take a closer look, right? So this is one of the key differentiators in any DR solution. It's how to deliver orchestration. You need the orderly recovery of a server environment. So this orchestration is going to ensure that all of those critical servers, applications, and devices come online in the proper sequence based on their dependencies. So this is a release that we had in the beginning of this year. It was a visual designer for drag and drop orchestration. And this is within the dashboard under our boot tab. You see this page for orchestration, and there's a list of bootable machines there along the left. So with that, you can simply drag them over onto the diagram design surface. And from here, you can rearrange them with that easy drag and drop. Add wait times if you want to add delays between boots. You can also create boot groups to run if some machines are more critical than others and you want to separate them out that way. So within the LAN configuration, you can also specify all of the network configuration settings for these machines. So you can specify the subnet, gateway, DNS servers, DHCP range. You can enable or disable internet access. So you have all of this control at your fingertips. And this is really critical. No matter what DR solution you choose, it's just so important to understand exactly how that solution plans to fail over your applications and then fail back, in addition to how much customization and control you have over that whole process. So just keep that in mind. Again, regardless of what solution you have, these questions are really important to ask your provider. Now, getting into the Infrascale guarantee. So our mission at Infrascale is really simple. It's simply to eradicate downtime and data loss. And we do this with a 15-minute failover guarantee, which nobody in the industry currently offers. So let's take a look at the specifics and see exactly what it is that we can protect and what we support. So let's look at the specifics. We can protect any device, and that's across desktops, laptops, across Windows and Mac, mobile devices like iPhones and Androids, and that includes mobile device management functionality, so geolocate and remote wipe. also includes servers, both physical and virtual servers. We support physical servers running Windows, Unix, and Linux, and we support virtual servers on VMware, Hyper-V, and KVM. And we support more than 100 versions of operating systems, so this is truly the broadest support footprint that you'll find in the industry. Now, as far as recovery targets, we saw this very quickly when I was going through that process at a high level, but let's look at what we can support here. So we can support any cloud or a prepackaged appliance as well. And when I say any cloud, I mean that you can use one of Infrascale's 15 global data centers, or you can use your own private cloud, or we support third-party clouds. So our software runs with Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Windows, Azure, and IBM as well. When it comes to encryption, we take security very, very seriously. So your data is encrypted at 256-bit AES locally, and then it's sent over SSL and encrypted again at 256-bit AES at rest. You can even take it a step further with UltraSafe Max as well. And this is going to allow you to comply with HIPAA, SSA 16, FINRA, SOX, CGIS, and these are just a few that you see on your screen here. But all of our data centers are going to allow you to comply with these regulatory frameworks. Our data centers are all Tier 3 and Tier 4 military grade. So again, it's just a really important question to ask your solution provider, just find out from your vendor if that compliance factor is built in. So I have just a couple of more slides to share with you here, and then we're going to wrap up with a Q&A. I want to just share a little bit about us as a company. Now, I did mention in the beginning early on that we were named a Gartner leader in the 2017 DRAAS Magic Quadrant. So that was released just a few months ago. We were founded in 2011, and we're headquartered in Los Angeles, California. Now, how our service works is we're essentially using intelligent software. We are a cloud-first company. We have built-in global deduplication, compression, and WAN acceleration technologies. So we've eliminated the really bulky, expensive hardware that's associated with traditional backup and recovery solutions. And then you can bolt on an unlimited amount of cloud space for long-term storage as well. And our solution is all based on a low monthly subscription. It's simply the number of terabytes that you have to protect. You're only paying for what you protect. Now, this is a really interesting histogram here that I'd like to show you. Now, this is the recovery time for protected systems with Infrascale. Again, the actual recovery times that's with Infrascale disaster recovery. So if we look at the bottom here, we see the dates, these recent dates here. And then if we look at that y-axis, we see the average recovery time in minutes here. And just in case it's too small to read on your screen here, this average time is going from 0 to 5 minutes. Now, this is how you're going to read this histogram. For each date on the x-axis, there's a green or a red bubble. And the green bubble represents systems that are successfully recovered, while the red bubble shows systems not recovered, so they did not boot up successfully. If there's no bubble on that day, it means that there were no systems recovered on that day. And then the size of that bubble is going to correspond to the number of systems recovered, and the position on the y-axis is going to show the average time that it took to recover all of those systems. And so what's interesting about this is that this cloud boot histogram is showing historical data for the actual recovery time for every system recovered by Infrascale Disaster Recovery, and this is published live on our website and available for anyone to see at any time. So we're really putting our money where our mouth is here. You can see that the average recovery time is somewhere about 12 seconds. on this Cloud Boot histogram. So really interesting that we share all of this information live with all of our customers and anyone visiting our site. All right, so let's wrap up with looking at some of that buying criteria that you want to be considering and what you want to take into mind while you're deciding on a provider. So when it comes to protection, consider what types of workloads do you need to protect. Most DRAAS solutions will protect virtual environments, but not all workloads are virtualized. So you do need to find a solution that can protect physical workloads too. Recovery in the top right, this is recovery speed. And we know that time is essential for continuity. So how quickly can a vendor restore operations and spin up VMs is really critical. Orchestration, and this ensures that critical servers, applications, and their dependencies come online in the proper order. And it's important to understand exactly how your vendor plans to fail over your applications and then fail back. Support, I have that on here because you also want your solution to support you when it matters most. Do they offer 24/7 support? And where's that support located? Are there additional charges for declaring a disaster? How long is it going to take to respond? Or can you boot your own VMs without requiring their support? So these are lots of important questions, and too often are not asked until a disaster strikes, and then your team is left to scramble and work around your DRAAS vendor's support schedule and limited expertise. Replication target. So this is the flexibility to use the vendor's cloud, your own private cloud, or public cloud. So does your vendor equip you with that flexibility to spin up in multiple clouds, or at least the clouds that you care about? And then the last three here, fail back. When it comes to restoring operations after they've been shifted to a temporary DR location during that failover, you want to understand how any changes to data during that DR event are tracked and then how they're going to be restored properly. Testing, this is a really, really important one. This is the most important thing. Test your service frequently. There is no point in having a solution in place if it doesn't work for you when you need it. So you need to make sure that you can stick with regular testing schedules. You don't have additional fees or add-ons for testing. And you never know when an IT disaster is going to strike, so you do have to be prepared in that way. Finally, the cost. So depending on the vendor, all of these criteria become additional costs to the overall price tag. So you want to factor in activation fees, professional services, support, DR testing, disaster events, and ongoing maintenance. So what you want is a solution that's a subscription-based. You don't have additional costs for support or for declaring and recovering from disasters. Now, I bring up all of these buying criteria because it's very easy to find and choose a solution and then not necessarily have all of the right questions to ask up front. So just again to reiterate, with the Infrascale solution, the pricing is simply based on how much data you have to protect. Everything else is going to be completely included for you. So we do have that 15-minute failover guarantee. Endpoint protections already included as well. We don't limit the number of DR events or tests that you can run. All of the support and all of the onboarding is included. Maintenance costs are included. And of course, you also want to ask, have you been featured in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for DRAAS? So you want to see where the experts have determined that solution fits in. So I think now we're going to turn to the Q&A. Is that right? I know I've probably talked everyone's ear off. Let's hear a bit from you and hear from the audience.
Yes, great presentation, Carla. Thank you. We do have a number of questions from the audience for you. So the first one I have for you here is they're saying, I want to make sure I understand how your DRAAS solution works. Can I spin up my VMs in your cloud, or do I need my resources and then restore them down to my local site. How can you explain that for them?
Yep. So it sounds like a few different questions in there. So first was regarding which cloud, right? So you can use your own private cloud. You can also use one of Infrascale's 15 global data centers, or you can use any third-party cloud. So you can use Amazon, Azure, IBM, Google Cloud, and if you do decide to use one of Infrascale's data centers, those points of presence are throughout the U.S., Canada, the U.K., Australia, South Africa, and South America. So that covers that portion. And then the other portion of the question was it about failback, or did I answer that one?
Yeah, like after you recover a VM, where does that VM run? Does it run in the cloud, or does it run in their local data center?
So you have complete control and you have complete choice. So you will set that up in our dashboard, and you'll be able to either have that run on any cloud or run on premise as well. So that's up to what the business needs. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. And then another question that came in here, Michael's asking, what is the orchestration method and how easy is it to set up? I think that's what you were actually showing there, was your new graphical user interface.
Yeah, the orchestration, that release came out at the beginning of this year, a really great drag and drop visual designer. So it makes the whole orchestration setup, you want to get those policies and procedures in place, very, very easy. So when it comes to orchestration with that drag and drop designer, you can create boot groups. You can add wait times in between boots. So it's, again, something that an admin has complete control over, and you can access that right in our dashboard. So you won't need to refer to us if you do have a DR event. You have complete control to do that on your own. Okay. And then another question, there's a bunch of questions here about, like, do you support this? So I'll just kind of go down the list. Can you back up AIX systems? Yes. Okay. What about Nutanix Acropolis? Yes. Okay. FIPS 140X? I don't even know what that means. Yeah, I don't either, to be honest. So I will find out and then get back to that person. I'll have access here in the questions to email addresses, I believe. So let me get back to you on that one. Yes, sounds good. And then what about? I think you said this already, but are the backups encrypted in the cloud? Yes, they are. So encrypted locally, encrypted in transit, and then at rest. So it's encrypted at 256-bit AES locally, sent over 256-bit SSL tunnel, and then encrypted at 256-bit in the cloud at rest. You also have an option with UltraSafe Max to define the encryption key itself as well as the password. So it's almost like a bank safe deposit box, right, where you need two keys to open that. So even then right, okay, I think that answers that one. Yeah, and then another question came in here. I work at an SMB. Is there a VPN offering? So I think what they're getting at is for small companies, they don't need a dedicated circuit. Like can the backup data be sent through a VPN over the internet, I would assume? It can. So, and you can set up a site-to-site VPN. Awesome. Are there any APIs for the solution? Gosh, yes. I think I would need a little bit more specific of a question in that case. If I'll just kind of take a guess here, if it happens to be API integrations with RMMs and PSAs like ConnectWise or Kaseya, then the answer is yes. There are many others, so I would need more specifics on that, but I'm just going to maybe guess that they were talking about an RMM or PSA in that case. Okay. Thanks for being on my 20-question rapid fire Q&A here. Let's see, more great questions coming in. What about a failback? Can you kind of talk about
how that works
Yeah.
when they do need to recover?
Yeah. So let's just assume that you have that site-wide disaster where you don't have that local appliance, or even if you did, you're going to fail over. And then we want, your priority is to recover from that disaster in terms of everything else that needs to be done. So we don't want you needing to worry about the incremental changes in data, or how much time you're allowed to stay in that failover environment. So when you fail over, you're going to have as much time as is needed before you fail back to production. And we're also going to be tracking those incremental changes in data so that we bring that back for you as well. When it comes to a testing environment, or maybe a lift and shift type of situation where you're migrating everything up to the cloud, you could potentially, if you wanted to, run in that failover environment in perpetuity. So we really try to support our customers in that way and be as flexible as possible.
Cool. What about, another question came in about HIPAA compliance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do take security very seriously. We enable compliance with HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, PCI, CGIS, Safe Harbor, SAS 70, SSA 16. I can't think of any others offhand right now, but we also sign business associate agreements. So it is, if you're subject to any of those regulatory frameworks, you do want to make sure the vendor you choose has that compliance factor built in. For any of those that I missed, or if you had a specific question on a certain framework, just maybe add that into the question or let me know. So yes, we do, is the short answer there.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have in our live Q&A. Thanks so much for being on and for handling all the rapid fire questions today, Carla. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and very much look forward to working with all of you in the future. Have a great day.